All right, guys, module 7. With the poster, I am going to share this concept board that I did, and I have this video here as well. I decided for the last thing I wanted to try a tool that was mentioned in the other modules that I haven't used before, so I've never used a concept board. So I decided to play around with it and create one for this. So first, my philosophy of online teaching and learning. Like, I really do feel that there is a time and a place for it. I do think it's becoming um, a lot more popular, and I do feel that it's getting done a lot better than what it was in previous years. I think the pandemic had a lot to help with that kind of stuff. And so I just feel like there should be a good balance and really thoughtful integration of online teaching, especially for someone like me who's currently face to face. I do feel that I try to do more of a blended and kind of really incorporated. And this course has really shown me that what I thought was really a blended isn't necessarily. Like, I was doing more of the replace on like the pick rat model, and so instead I want to make sure that I'm trying to actually take advantage of the tools that are out there and actually get the students to um, engage more and get more from the technology that I could have in that classroom. I do feel that it's helping a lot of people out, such as us here in a grad class, right? We can now do this online instead of having to go in person. So I do feel that there are some really great advantages to this, and I think it's really headed in a positive direction. And I also feel that I uh, opened my eyes to this accessibility, right? And that online accessibility handbook just really opened my eyes to things. And I mentioned that later in my ahas. But that's definitely something that I've kind of taken into consideration as I'm doing some more online teaching. So as I mentioned, right, this blended learning, this is the type that I'm going to aim to do. I love my learning management system of Schoology, and my goal is just to continue to use it and then start including some more tech tools better. So right now, I do heavily use Delta Math and Desmos in my math classroom. I don't see that changing, but I see how I'm integrating them in being different. I think Desmos has a lot more to offer than what I'm doing with it. And so I would like to take advantage of that. And I think this course has really opened up my eyes to seeing what all it could have in there. And so, online learning, right, this social and emotional well being, it plays a huge role with students. And so, I need to make sure that I like to check in. I need to know how our students doing with not only material, but what are they doing in their life? Right? And I like to make sure I have those check-ins. So those check-in screens that I have on a synchronous or asynchronous day, I do it actually both of those days. So we have a few asynchronous days in my district, usually on the days where the teachers have our professional development, the students have an asynchronous day, and I always start off with a check-in. And it usually ends with, well, what are your goals? And I feel like that helps students get into that reflecting piece of the SEL. And one of the things that's mentioned in the readings were practice routines, procedures, and navigations. And I really tried to make sure that my kids know exactly what to expect, whether it's a face to face, whether we're on Zoom, or whether it's that asynchronous day, and really getting into that habit. I think it's really important for students to know what to expect. And one of the things that really stood out to me is this line from the Integrating Social and Emotional Learning Strategies in Higher Education article. And it says that social and emotional skills extend beyond academic context and outcomes such as success in work, positive interpersonal relationships, and better mental health and overall well being. And this really just shows that while we are there to teach the students the content, we also need to teach them about life and making sure that they are a, doing well as a person, not just on their work. And so I just feel like that's super important. I do feel like a lot of kids are more comfortable sharing online and getting to have those social emotional skills. I feel like students can become better at having those skills because of what we can now do online with them. And I also feel like, right, we can focus on what does it mean to be a good digital citizen and a citizen, and like having that connection, and again just getting those students to make better choices and really focusing and reflecting on their decisions. For the current work, so I have, um, I feel like signed up for most of those AI tools that were in that module there, and I have played around with quite a few of them, and I've liked some of them. Some of them I'm finding that I don't like as much, but there's a good amount out there. And right now, I am working towards a choice board for my students to do in my Algebra 1 unit. Um, haven't done one like this before. I'm really curious to see how it will work overall, but I'm really excited, and that AI has definitely helped that. Um, and I've had some good conversations too about AI with my Algebra 2 students and just getting their perspective. And so it's been really interesting to hear what a high school student's thoughts are on AI. So it's like no one's talked about with them yet. So it's kind of cool. Um, so I mentioned this already, and I realized I switched that to pick rat model. And I just need to make sure that I'm doing a better job of not simply replacing something that we could do on paper with that online tool. And so, right, my goal is to make it a more meaningful blend of the in-person and online learning activities where I'm not just replacing and getting it. And so getting it past the R. And so that's going to be a current goal of mine. And I hope I'm getting that in that concept in the choice board from the AI. So really spending some time focusing on that in my classroom right now. And then, as I mentioned, from that framework from remote teaching, I really do try to make sure that everything is organized and in a way that kids understand. I get their feedback. And so I've used Schoology now for, I think, 6, 7 years, something like that. And I've overall have found that the way I currently have it set up is really helpful. Kids like it, they understand it. And I've had, again, really good feedback from my students on that over the years. And I've actually shared within now 2 districts exactly how it's set up, and it's gone over really well. One of the tech tools I still use is Desmos. I love it. I think it's great. It gives me that interaction with the students. I get to do this asynchronously or synchronously. It's extremely nice tech tool that I've really enjoyed. And I plan on trying to figure out some more about QThink and seeing if I can get that, how I can get that up and running in my Algebra 1. So my biggest ahas that I've taken away, I really didn't realize how much was out there. There's a lot. Um, it's just amazing what is out there with that. Um, time. So time is a theme that I felt like kept coming up from module 1 until module 6. And it's just one of those things that everything be talked about time and how much time we need as teachers, with and without our students, right? Like we need time to plan, we need time to sit down and be able to give that feedback to the students. But in general, I just feel like time was a general theme that I saw all the time throughout every module. Um, I realized that there's a lot of different types of online teaching, and it's really important to figure out what works for you and your students. Is it all online? Is it more blended? Is it blended just, the thing it mentioned like a 39 to 70%? Like, well, what percent is it? And then using that pick a rat model, like where are you at on that model and things like that. So that was really eye opening. The accessibility, I imagine a lot of us will mention that because I had no idea that how something was read to a student. So that was a huge takeaway and something that I'm definitely going to keep in mind in the future, and making sure when I'm creating those documents that be mindful of how I have that, the slides, things like that. Um, and then I just picked some things that have really stood out to me when I was doing my reading. So, online teachers can also help students develop essential time management and self motivation skills by providing explicit strategies, by modeling, and by reinforcing positive student behaviors. So, right, having that time to make sure that we're modeling what those behaviors are, giving them those strategies, reinforcing that positive student behavior. So, connecting back to that student social and emotional well-being, right? And having that and making sure that we are helping them with those things. I also don't think I ever thought about these 3 types of interactions that are actually there for the students, right? So the types of interactions that a student can have is student to content, student to instructor, or student to student. And in the chapter 5 online interaction article mentions that online discussions can combine all 3 of these. And I don't think I ever really thought of it that way, but they really could. They can get time to talk to the instructor, they get to talk to their peers, and then they also get to access content. And so it's interesting that I've never really realized that online discussions can be extremely helpful for that. And then it says the key outcome of any instruction is student achievement of course goals and objectives. But how we ask students to demonstrate their learning can often influence motivation, engagement, and satisfaction. And that's from the chapter 5, Collaboration and Community Building from Rice. This stood out to me because I feel like it involves, right? Could it be that we're using AI? Could it be that we're using a tech tool that gives them choice? Could it be that we are really looking and focusing on their social and emotional well being? You know, all of those things, I feel like that statement takes everything that we've talked about in this course, and it just really, I don't know, hit home with me. And then last thing I said again, time. I just feel like that was such a huge thing over all of the modules.